Okay, let's reconvene our meeting, and I think we're going to go to item number 10.1, Utilities NRSC report. Cole Steinley is here to report to us, so if you'll take the chair now, we'd appreciate that. Thank you. Welcome here.
Thank you very much, and as always, I thank Council for the opportunity to give my report to you. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Cole Steinley. I'm the Operations Manager for Newell Regional Services, so the regional water and sewer company that operates within the county. And a lot of the county-owned assets are operated by us, and that's why I come here to kind of give Council an update on how everything's running and all the things that are happening within the hamlets and the infrastructure for the water and sewer. So that's why I'm here, and I will jump right into it. So Rolling Hills currently has three pumps in the distribution pump house in the hamlet, and pump number 2 has been out of commission for a number of months. It had a catastrophic failure. It was sent to our local, well, not local, but a contractor that we commonly use in Tabor, Integrity Pump. They rebuilt it. They sent the motor out to get rewound. It finally got reinstalled, but it wasn't quite to specs, so they're going to have to do some tweaking on it. They're going to have to add a couple stages to it. It was producing enough water, but it wasn't able to maintain the pressure that they normally operate, so it couldn't run by itself. It needed help. So we talked with Jeff Tiffin and internally at NRSC, and we decided that we're going to get Integrity to build it properly so that it's standalone like it should be. So that might take a couple more weeks for parts and then for them to reassemble that and put it back in. So we'll be looking at about another 4 weeks for it to be back in. But like I said, there's 3 pumps there. There's still redundancy in place. The residents of Rolling Hills have nothing to worry about as far as the distribution system. So it's all good, but we hope to have that back to normal within a month. An update, I'm not sure if everybody knows that the government mandated some residential lead testing as far as the service lines going into that are outside the jurisdiction of the distribution system that we look after. Yes, it is. Sorry, I can adjust it a bit better. So is that better? Okay, no problem. So as I was saying, the government mandated lead testing for residential services. So just the past, the service valve where we operate up to, the residential side, the homeowner side, the government wanted some testing done, especially in older houses, to see if there was any lead issues, traces of lead in their drinking water, that due to the fixtures or the lead service lines, if they were present or anything like that, that would. So we went around and did the sampling throughout the county and all the hamlets and the rural drinking water areas, which there are 6 of. And they came back. We only had 1 that came back over maximum allowable concentration. It wasn't horribly bad, but we notified the homeowner and we resampled, and we're waiting for the resample. It could be an anomaly, or it could be something that they have a little bit of high lead levels. So we will work with the homeowner moving forward based on what we get back from the resample. So all in all, one bad sample out of everything. That's good news. So we did have a little bit of an issue where Rolling Hills and Scandia, so a grand total of 20 samples between the lab that we use and the courier, they managed to misplace the cooler. So we contacted Alberta Environment, and they gave us permission, because we were past the September 30th deadline. They gave us permission to resample, and because there's nothing that we could do. We sent those samples in on September 9th, but they disappeared, so no one seems to know where they went, so we're going to have to resample on those. So all the fall maintenance that we currently do have been completed throughout the county. This includes fire hydrant flushing and lift station cleaning. So we did that We flush fire hydrants at Lake Newell Resort and Tilly. Those are the only two hamlets that have the infrastructure for us to do that. So that allows us to kind of maintain the integrity of the distribution system in that we flush it and make sure that nothing is accumulated in there and everything's fresh and clean. So that's part of a maintenance system. We do that twice a year, normally fall and spring. So the fall one has been done. And then it's just good practice, in my experience, to clean out the lift stations in fall before winter hits. If you get an accumulation of grease and some other things that may cause some of the Miltronics or some of the electronics to malfunction, and we don't want to deal with that when it's minus 40. So give it a nice good clean in the fall, and then it brings us through the winter months with little to no issues, so it works out fairly well. And then we do it again in the spring, so that's part of our fall maintenance as well, and that's been completed. We had, I don't know if everybody knows the backstory about Rolling Hills. The infrastructure there is quite old. It's dating back, I believe the as-built drawings that I have are from 1982, and it was fused HDPE pipe, meaning that a lot of the joints, they just use heat and then kind of melt them together. Some of those joints are failing now that we're seeing we're 40 years in or plus. So it's been a problem over the last 5-6 years for sure. And we had another leak at the intersection of 3rd Street and 2nd Day Avenue. It was 2 weeks ago Friday. So we found the leak, we put a repair clamp on it, and had it all back into service. There's about 20 customers, so it was the northwest corner of Rolling Hills. The customers there were about 20 of them were out, without water for about a half an hour, so it wasn't too bad. We managed to minimize that. So then I'll jump to wastewater collection. We will be discharging the Patricia wastewater lagoon as soon as we can free up a blockage, and there's an update on that. Since I wrote this, we freed that up yesterday, so we're good to go, and we'll be discharging the Patricia lagoon. That's pretty normal. Sometimes the discharge pipes, they clog up, or a muskrat will get in, or something like that. So we had Big S jet it out for us and clean it up, and so now we're good to go. We haven't discharged Patricia's lagoon for a couple of years. It rarely needs it. They don't produce a lot of wastewater, and then with evaporation through the course of summer, it rarely needs to be done, but this year is one of them, and it won't take long to do it. And that's the exact same story for Tilly Lagoon. We're not going to discharge it this year. The level in it isn't high enough to warrant it, so it's better for it just to sit there and do its job. And that's the extent of my report. So if there's any questions or anything, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Hi. Under the rural water project, you say normal observations were observed, but what about the leak on the Highway 530?
The leak at one of the sample hydrants, Jeff Tiffin and our operations supervisor have gone out to check it out a couple times. So when you deal with that, I've got some pictures on my phone. There's minimal amount of water in the ditch there, maybe a few cubes. So we're looking at 3,000 liters of water. If that, you can hardly tell in the ditch, like when you look at it. So what we normally do is it can leak for a couple different reasons, whether it be a failed piece of infrastructure, or if there happens to be a leak on the hydrant itself, there a rubber bushing kind of stop. If that happens to be passing a little bit, it can leak. They're self-draining too, so if they're not 100% closed, they'll leak out the drain. So if you just open and close it, sometimes it'll stop too. So we've been monitoring it for about a week or two, since it was brought to our attention that there was a problem there. And what we normally do that over the course of an investigation, because, like I said, a couple thousand liters is raw water rates to use $1 a cube, so that's $3 worth of water. It's $2,000 minimum to hydrovac it up, so it's always good operation to see what's happening and then deal with it as we see fit. So if it doesn't dry up, if it wasn't a problem with the valve, we'll dig it up and fix it.
I'm just wondering with that situation, is that something that normally that your operators who drive by daily should pick up? Because my husband called after it had been running for quite some time and water was running in the ditch. So I think it was probably a little more water loss than that is my guess.
Pardon me? It was probably what?
Given the amount of water running in the ditch that it was noticed, I think it was a little more substantial than that was our guess anyway.
As far as if we notice those things, there's 6,200 square kilometers in the county of Newell. There's 500 hydrants. We don't see them every day. So we rely on the public a lot of times, whether it be in the city of Brooks or in any of the hamlets, any of the towns. It's a lot of times they're found by residents that are in the local areas that phone in and say, hey, you have a problem, and then we'll go out and check it. We have 1 operator to 3 operators depending on the day of the week and the schedules that are out there. So 6,200 square kilometers with 1 operator on a certain day or up to 3. We don't see every single piece of infrastructure every single day. So especially that one, you're going by it at 100 kilometers an hour. It was checked because we can check our GPS and we can check our data software that we do for when we visit those hydrants and stuff like that, because we do flush them. That's what the point of them are, is to keep chlorine residual and disinfection throughout the whole entire system up to levels so potability is never affected. So that means we have to visit 500 and some hydrants over the course of a short period of time so that some of them don't get left for months and months and months, and some of the lines don't get stagnant water in them. So we know when we were there, we can tell by our GPS, when we can tell when the valve was turned on and stuff like that. So it was operated on the 28th of September, and we were notified in the middle of October, so roughly 2 weeks later. It was bone dry and there's no water in the ditch at all on the September the 28th when our operator was there. So we were notified and we addressed it with Jeff Tiffin from Engineering Services and our crew after that, and I explained the rest of it, how we dealt with it.
So short, please.
I've got 3 questions. Going back to the lead testing, if you do find the second results come back with lead, and we're going to work with them, what costs are going to be involved with that, and who's bearing those costs?
So the way it works is basically the Alberta environment gave us a large document on how to deal with different situations when we do all this lead testing. So it's because it is the homeowner's property, we can give them suggestions, especially if it's lower levels than what it is right now. I think it was 0.12 micrograms per liter, which is the maximum allowable concentration. Used to be 0.1, and now it's 0.05 because they cut it in half a couple of years ago. It's not grossly high, but it is high as we see. So if it does come back and it's roughly in the same area, we can inform the customer that they can put filters on their system to filter out lead, or there's other mitigating ways that they can deal with it. I don't even know for sure. We could ask them if they have a lead service. It could be something as simple as their taps in their house have some brass or some alloys that have lead in it that get leached out. But for the most part, our water isn't corrosive enough to leach out lead in fixtures or lead service lines like that. So it could be finding its way there some other way, but we don't know that because it's not our property or it's not the county's infrastructure. It's on their house or whatever.
So the NRSC portion of it would just be informing.
Yes.
Okay. Second question was, how was the reporting done for the water flow through the hydrant flushing? Was it metered, calculated, estimated?
So we flush, like I said, every hydrant, and it's usually over time until we get a sufficient residual. It's not metered. The way that the County of Newell Water Project was designed, obviously with the astronomical cost, and it was a big bill to do the whole County Newell Water Project, which we're all grateful that we have. It's a very good system, but there's only about 23 meters in the whole entire system. So it's not, each individual landowner doesn't have a meter at their service, and each individual flush hydrant doesn't have a meter on it. So we can't tell exactly how many cubes are, but 20 years of experience, you can kind of tell the difference between a huge break and something minimal.
So it's just calculated or estimated then, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the third question was, what does just discharging a lagoon entail?
It's fairly simple. There's no mechanical or actual treatment, wastewater treatment plants in the county at all. Even the city of Brooks is a lagoon system. So they were based on using anaerobic and aerobic cells, using microorganisms to break down the waste, and over time is basically how they work. So they usually have 4 cells that they first go into and then go through them, and then they go into some bigger ones that hold it for long periods of time. And then you discharge that after a length of time, and that's all it entails. So once a year, you usually just let it go into the canal system, and it makes its way back. Just the way the topography works is we draw all our raw water out of the Bow River, and then all the wastewater streams usually go into the Red Deer, just the way it works. And in this one, in this instance, Patricia dumps into, I believe it is, can't remember the name of the creek. I just was talking about it literally a half an hour ago, but it's just escaping me right now. But I think one sandhill, and then it actually goes right beside Dinosaur Provincial Park, where it actually dumps into the Red Deer River. So that's where we'll discharge it. We open up the valve, we wait a minimum of 24 hours, we'll take samples, we send it to a lab, get it analyzed, and continue on with the discharging. Then when it's down low enough, we'll close the valve, and we'll do it again when it needs to be done. The other 2 ones that we look after is Scandia and Rolling Hills, and those ones are a little different. We don't discharge it into a canal system and have it make its way down into a river system. The county owns pivots, and then they apply it to the agricultural land, and that's how it gets used up or discharged that way. So Scandia and Rolling Hills use irrigation.
Okay, any other questions? If not, thank you for your report. That's it for you. Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
No problem. Thank you very much.
We'll see you next month, I'm sure, eh? This happens monthly? Yeah, great. Thank you. At this point, we'll move back to item 9.1. Stuart, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Reeve Council. Thank you very much for having me today to talk about the Patricia Fire Hall and some cost increases that are incurred on this. Just to give you a little bit of history before I get into the request for decision. When I first started back in 2019, I did a study of all the fire halls and saw and looked at what needs assessments needed to be done within the fire departments within the county of Newell. And I found that the Patricia Fire Hall was a priority simply because we have 2 pieces of apparatus that are sitting in a single bay that basically sit nose to nose, and the back truck is actually touching the back wall of the fire hall. So there's a real concern that that something could happen there someday if the fire department guys were not as careful as they could be, plus access to bathrooms and things like that, where you got to open up the main door to get around to it. So this is why the Patricia Fire Hall became my main priority as I move forward. I did present to council last year about preparing a budget for that, and I did present a budget to them that from a local contractor that had given me some pricing. And then in 2020, it was approved, November 2020, they approved the budget for the construction of the new Patricia Fire Hall, but they also requested that I go back and try and find the best, most cost-efficient way to get this project completed. So in order to do that, we needed to do two things. One was we needed to get some geotechnical studies done on the property because we needed to see basically how hard the ground was, what the water saturation is, things like that, so that we knew what kind of footings we had to put in, what kind of pad needed to be poured, and so on. And the second part to that was finding out whether it was more cost efficient to add on to the structure that is currently there, or if it was just better to build a brand new structure for the Patricia Fire Hall. So at the end of the day, with the help of Egg Services and Facilities, we engaged BDT Engineering to conduct, or sorry, not BDT, Colliers Groups out of Calgary to come in and do a study on how much it would cost to add on to the structure and how much it would cost to build a new one. After that study was done, it was found that by the time you were done doing as-builts and trying to add on to the addition of the structure, it turned out to be actually more expensive than it was to actually build a brand new structure. So option number one was to retain the existing building, construct the expanding using conventional structure, or option two, construct a new pre-engineered building elsewhere on the site. So after the study was done, option one, retaining the building structure and constructing a 3,800 square foot expansion, came out at about $1.5 million. And then option number two, to construct a brand new 5,000 square foot facility, it came out at about the same price. There was only about $40,000 difference between building or adding on, and it was actually cheaper to build a brand new structure. Now, when I approached council about this project, the initial budget was $1 million to construct the structure. With the study and the costing back from the project group, we are over that current budget by 53%, which is primarily due in part to a significant increase in construction costs since the original budget was prepared. And I think part of it also is through Collier's assessment. They're talking about building spring of 2023 and erecting it. So when I approached council back when I was originally looking for the budget, I did say that there would be a 6 to 10% increase for every year that we didn't build the construction. So there's a little bit of add-on with that as well. So I think that's primarily why the costs have gone up on this structure. In either case, new construction for addition to the existing facility, this funding could come from the capital building project in Patricia, or for the Patricia Fire Hall in the 2021 budget, with the overage coming from the additional allocation under capital building fund in 2022 budget. So the options that I want to present to council today is to appoint Colliers as the project leaders for this project for the remainder of the project and construct a new engineered building on site. The second option is to appoint Colliers Projects and to be the manager and to build the expansion using conventional construction, or the council not approve either option and provide an alternative direction to pursue. So the recommendation that I'm going to make today is that to construct a new pre-engineered building on the site with approval of the capital expenditure increase coming from the capital budget fund in 2022, and having Colliers being the project leader for this construction project. That's what I have for now, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? Thanks, Stuart. Councillor Short, then Councillor Crispin, and Councillor.
Thank you. The engineer structure, that's a steel frame building?
That would be, yeah, it would be a steel structure rather than conventional lumber. And at the end of the day, We did ask Colliers to kind of weigh out which would be the cheaper method to build.
Right.
And they did come back with a pre-engineered structure, which typically means a steel Butler-style building with a metal outside on it.
And they didn't give a price for a conventional lumber-built one then?
I did not see an additional one. The report was supplied with you as an attachment to this request for decision, and there is nothing in there about conventional lumber building.
Okay. And I've heard from other guys that are building right now that priced out steel and priced out lumber, and lumber was way cheaper. That's why I kind of wanted to know. Thank you.
Stuart, in Patricia, how many active firefighters do we have?
We have 12 active firefighters right now in Patricia.
Thank you. And what is the time to travel? Let's just say if a truck had to come from Brooks or from Dutchess, what would be the time?
Yeah, the time from Dutchess or Tilly actually would be your two closest.
Tilly, okay.
And both of them are pretty equal. It's about 27 minutes travel time from either fire hall. And that's driving highway speeds, normal highway speeds. The other thing to factor into that is the time it takes from tone out to get to the fire hall, to get the truck out of the hall, which is somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes as well. So we're not talking just 27 minutes, it's more like 37, 40 minutes before somebody would actually arrive in the Patricia area.
And then my final question is, have we, or is it customary to get more than one quote?
Thanks, Mark.
Well, maybe I can speak to that. So right now, what Stuart is presenting isn't, a tender package. This is engineers' estimates. If council so chooses to approve Stuart moving forward, he'd get tender packages together, go out to market, and that's where you ask the market to tell you what prices are looking like. So we might get a surprise, and there might be a proposal for a stick-built kind of a thing, and right?
Yeah. When the tenders do go out, we can definitely say that it could be conventional or pre-engineered. So,
Thank you, Councillor Call.
I have a couple questions. Mostly it has to do with the existing building that's there right now. How old is it, and what would you see it being used for if we just go with a brand new one?
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Crow. That structure is a 1984. I do believe it is. Somewhere in that range is when it was built. It's attached to the regional water plant right now, so it is a single bay that has been added on to once already to accommodate the fire trucks that are in there right now. That facility there, it's a County of Newell facility, so the county and Newell administration would be able to allocate that building to be whatever they wanted it to be, but it definitely could be used as a storage. I don't think it's an area where we could put the grader in just simply because the building's too small, I think, for that big grader. But at the end of the day, I think county administration would decide what would happen with that structure, and definitely it could be rented out for something.
I'm just looking at your plans for the new build, and it's I believe a 5,000 square foot building, which is very large. If you use the old building, it was going to be 3,800 and some. So, therefore, could the new building not also be around 4,000 square feet as opposed to 5,000 to make it more economical?
Excellent question. The 3,800 is in addition to what's already there. So the plan, if we were to add on to the structure, was to put a 2-bay facility attached to that building. And then we would take that single bay that we have now and make that into the training room, chief's office, bathroom, things like that. So theoretically, that would be the office space where it exists now, and we would have 2 big bays that would sit right beside it for the 3,800. So if you build a 5,000 square foot, that's how you equate 3 bays, basically.
I'm just curious because we built a 4,000 square foot shop a couple of years ago, and just looking how roomy it is, we can park many pieces of equipment in it. We still have a bathroom, a shop, an office. I'm just wondering if there's a way to condense some things here. It looks like you have an upstairs as well. I just see a set of stairs. I don't just know what's upstairs and downstairs. But is there a way to make it smaller and a little more economical?
In my planning, I thought I tried to, I don't want to say cut as many corners, but make it as economical as possible. I tried to allow for a small area for a classroom setting for the firefighters to learn in, a very small chief's office. And the fact that there was a set of stairs was just simply to utilize storage on top, because most normal buildings, when you build them now, are close to 20 feet tall. So you have all that space above that we thought we would try and utilize either as a storage space or even as another training area for the firefighters to work in. So really, I tried to keep everything as basic and as bare bones as possible, but truly you need 2 bays that are 20 feet wide roughly to get your 2 fire trucks in, and then you need that 3rd bay just to allocate those extra things that are there with the chief's office, the classroom, the bathrooms, mechanical room, things like that.
Councillor Hunter, please. Question?
So what does it work out to be per square foot?
Per square foot, I think I had that costing on here. I think it was, with the addition, the square footage. If you could just give me 1 second, I can tell you exactly what it was.
That has information.
I've got it for you here, Stuart. In, I think, page 2 of your request for decision, option 1, which is the addition, is 306 per square foot, and option 2, 239 per square foot.
That's right, exactly.
Please.
2 more questions came to mind. And I think, you may have the answer too, Stuart. Am I right to say 22 residents in the hamlet of Patricia?
I don't know that answer right offhand. I thought it was closer to, 100, isn't it, in the hamlet?
Not residents, sorry, I meant properties.
Oh,
like
properties.
Homes.
Yeah, I haven't
I'm not
done
talking
how many.
population.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how many properties are in that area of Patricia,
Yeah.
their fire protection area that they have. The other thing that really needs to have big consideration there is the Dino Provincial Park, which is just right off of there. And of course, they have their heritage site there where they have dinosaur bones that need to be protected and stuff like that. So it's really important to have a fire department close for something like that.
Driver, please.
Since the proximity to the provincial park, is there any grants or is there any money coming from the province with respect to firefighting, fire department?
That is a very good question, and I have not explored anything like that, but I certainly could.
That's a good suggestion, probably, for...
Yeah, I've never looked for grants, but at the end of the day, I'm sure with the help of administration, we might be able to find something, so.
Are there any other questions? We have a decision before us, correct?
Councillor Johnson has a question there. Reed Dirksen.
It's actually more for Matt. I'm looking for clarification. So this was already approved to go ahead with this build. Our question is whether or not we like this, or where are we at in the process? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, that's right. So the Patricia Fire Hall was approved as a project for Stuart to look into. It was included in this year's budget. Stuart's been at this table a few times. You know, the direction he received from previous council was to try and tighten things up as best as he could. I think what Stuart has in front of us is his best attempt at tightening those things up while still accomplishing a building footprint in Patricia, which will serve you well for a long period of time. In terms of the ask today, Stuart's original budget of $1 million, and this is kind of the challenge in budget planning, right? Because we haven't gone to market, we haven't, you know, gone to tender to see what people are really willing to do to deliver. So that's a best estimate. That best estimate was based on, you know, a rough quote from a local builder. After Stuart's additional work, getting Colliers involved, that new best estimate is 1.5. Stuart could go to market and you might get bids coming back at $2 million, and you'll have another decision to make then whether it's worth $2 million to you to have the fire hall in Patricia. So right now, if you approve the project, for Stuart to go to the effort of getting the tender package together, then Stuart would do that. He'd put it out to market, he'd receive the tenders, and due to the dollar value of this project, Stuart's going to be back again in front of you looking for you to award that tender. So if at that time it comes back and it's, you know, $1 million for the build, we're looking good again. If it's $1.5 million, well, you know, but if you're getting gun shy on the price tag, you really won't know what the price tag is until Stuart goes to market. So the decision today is whether Stuart continues his work and gets the tender packages together and goes out and uses Colliers to project manage.
Councillor Chrisman?
My mind went to management. So historically, have we had 2 trucks in Patricia, and what makes 2 trucks the optimal number? We have a big area, we have huge grassland area, we've got Dinosaur Provincial. Is it 3 trucks? What makes the optimal number of trucks for a department? I take Bassano, for example. We ran that town and that area for years with 1 truck, and then we got 2. Now we're up to 4. So this is a management question that I have around what makes the perfect number.
Yeah, back before my time, my predecessor probably did a very good study on where equipment allocation should be within the County of Newell. And when I first started, again, that was part of my needs assessment to see where I thought things needed to be within the County of Newell. Now, Patricia has a lot of grazing EID land, and they also have a lot of well sites that are on these lands, and they need quick response vehicles. So to me, a big priority is having a rapid response vehicle. Now, unfortunately, a rapid response vehicle does not fight structure fires. It can't fight the well fires, but it can fight the grass fire that's around the well fires. So that puts a fire truck in that area being another big need that should be there, in particular to service the area of Patricia, and again, I'm not too sure how many residents that is, but what I look to more is that that provincial park that is there that services upwards of 150,000 people in a season, and having a service there to help with that situation itself, to which a fire truck is essential for the buildings that are there. And then again, the wildland fire trucks, which came very apparent with the 5,000 acre fire that we had, having those quick, light vehicles that are able to go over the prairie, stop the fire before it goes into the coulee so it doesn't end up into the provincial park and the campsites. So when I did my study, and that's where we ended up with a new pumper tender in Dutchess, was because right now, within Rosemary, Patricia, and Dutchess, the only water tender that is close by is either Bassano, Gem, or Tilly. So if we strategically placed a water tender in Dutchess that was also a pumper truck, would work as a fire engine, as per se, now that tender can service Patricia and Gem, or sorry, Rosemary quite easily, and they're close by. So we have our quick response vehicles that get out there, and then we think about the vehicles that we bring in that are going to take a few more minutes, but at least we'll be able to start fighting the fire before the big water shows up. So that's how I did my assessment through the 9 fire departments and decided where and what we need and why we needed a rapid response in Rolling Hills, which is being built right now. And then, of course, future studies that'll come down in the Scandia-Bow City area. So I hope that answers it. Kind of long-winded, but
Thank you, Matt.
Just to circle back around to Councillor Chrisman's earlier question about number of properties and such in Patricia and area. In the hamlet proper, we're showing 87 residential properties, so whether they've all got a home on them or not, but they're assessed as residential, 3 commercial, 1 small business, and then in terms of population in the area, just give me a second here, 87 residents in the hamlet and 1,066 in Division 3 surrounding, just to provide some context.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter.
And that would include, obviously, a Hutterite colony of 100 some people, correct? So what does a shop, like a farm shop, 5,000 square feet, what would that be? Like, I don't have a clue, but...
Yeah, I don't have a clue what the farm shop costs either, but I think it's important to remember that farm shops don't have to be built to the same standards as a fire hall, right?
But I can just say that we built a 4,000-foot shop 3 years ago, cement floor, plumbing, heating, furnace, everything you need. No, it's not quality of a fire station, I know that. But it was probably about 230,000. So even if prices have gone up quite a bit, it would be 400, 450 now, give or take. And it would be wood construction.
Yeah, and I think, again, you know, it's maybe a little early to get hung up on the price tag because we haven't really gone to market on it, right? So Stuart's given you a ballpark around $1.5 million, and it could ultimately come in higher or lower than that when he goes to market.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to ask, where are we at now? Are we looking for a motion to...
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead with the option 1, that we build a new structure. He looks into it with Colliers.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Scandrup. That motion is printed for us as part of the minutes, that Collier's project leaders be appointed as project managers for the remainder of the Patricia Fire Hall project to construct a new pre-engineered building on the site with the approval of the capital expenditure in the amount of $1.532 million coming from the capital building fund in the 22 budget. Any further discussion or questions? Ready for the question? All in favor, please indicate. Opposed? Okay, that's carried with opposition. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Stuart. Okay. We've bounced around our agenda a little bit today so far, which was of necessity. We're back on to item number 8, right? Agriculture services business. I expect Todd is going to be here to present to us. Are you presenting electronically?
Well, to save you a few minutes of me walking down there, I could certainly talk from here if you can hear me.
Sure.
All right. Well, the fun part about the council update, the Ag Service Board update, something that started a few years ago. There was just some, I guess, concerns that we might not be in front of council enough, and you guys might not know exactly what's going on all the time. Typically, we do a formal report, which you'll see at the end of November. It happens every second month in the second meeting, but there's a lot of meetings in between. So we come in and give a quick update just on some tasks, and if there's any questions, I'm always happy to ask them. And if at any time council doesn't see the need for these anymore, I'm also happy to stop doing them. So I guess just jumping right in, this is the time of year where we do all of our PM tasks, so the preventative maintenance tasks on all the facilities. So whether it's, lubricating the overhead doors or changing filters, that's what we do. So the guys have been out to all the fire halls and of course our main facility here and done that. We did our seed plant inspections. We did 3 seed plants. They have to, according to our ratings, get more than 80%. And all of our seed plants do a fantastic job, and they always rate quite high. So for sure they get a passing grade from us. Also this time of year, a lot of grant reporting that gets done. We do pull in a lot of grant funding for our weed control work as well as our pest surveys. So we submit all of those final reports and get our well-needed money back for that work. This is also, we talk about preventative maintenance. I think in any ag operation, it's pretty easy to know that most of your work happens between April and October. So then in that off season, we kind of bring all of our equipment in and make sure it's ready to go for April 1st. So especially our rental equipment, we always want to make sure that it's operating as best as it can be. So when, producers are using, let's say, our drills to seed, we don't want them to have hiccups mid-season. So we try to get rid of all that guesswork early on. This fall, we took the opportunity. We're going to be selling a tractor. We're kind of doing it by tender bid. So you might have seen it if you follow us on social media. I believe the first post has been out. It's a 7230 premium. I think it's a 2008. And we actually put a loader on it that was on from a different tractor, and we're selling that one kind of, like I said, by tender bid. So hopefully, if you know somebody that's looking for a 130 horsepower tractor with 3-point hitch and a beautiful loader, it's going to be something they're going to want to look at. We also had the opportunity, we had a renter in a tax forfeiture home in Scandia. They have recently moved out kind of mid-October. So we went in and did the final inspection on that and just been working on trying to figure out the next steps for that property. We did complete our roadside seeding, so that was good. And everything that had been kind of completed by Municipal Services up until about October 20th, we're able to get over and harrow out and get some seed in the ground, so that was good. I've been working with a little bit the Brooks Fish and Game. They are putting together a proposal to plant some trees out at the Aqueduct trout pond property. It's about a 20-acre site that they're looking to put some trees on, so I've been working with their members a little bit, just a little bit on the design, a little bit on pricing, and some consulting work, if you will. It's been great. They have a wonderful group put together, and I hope it works out for them. We were contacted late fall about a potential clubroot infestation by a landowner. We have worked with that landowner, and we did confirm that with them. So we just, I guess, letting everybody know that we have confirmed one more clubroot infestation in the county. And then, yeah, just starting to do some kind of soil. We did a few tours around looking, what producers had going into the fall for, land roughness, what they've left standing, what was kind of out and about. So that was good to see, and I think we're across the board looking in pretty good shape. We do have, I think, our final soil advisory meeting next week, and hopefully have that policy in your hands for the first meeting in December. And that's what kind of about what we got going on. Any questions?
Thank you, Todd. Are there any questions from council? Excuse me, Councillor Unruh, please.
So, Todd, how was the clubroot infestation discovered? Was it through your team, or was it through the landowner?
It was through the landowner, yeah. They were doing their fall operations, swathing and harvesting, and they just noticed some areas that were kind of looked like they had weak spots, and through their own research, and then we sent out one of our teammates to do some looking. We found some symptoms, sent away the samples, and it came back positive on 2 tests. So it was all through landowner cooperation on that one, which is really nice to see.
Good. Any other questions? Seeing none, thanks for the report, Todd, and we'll hear you at the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to item 9.2, correct? The Bassano Joint Recreation Funding Commitment for 2022. Wayne, please.
So this item is before council in relation to the recreation funding agreement that you have in place with the town of Bassano. The funds have already been included in the budget. They were certainly in the budget for 2021. They have been included in the budget for 2022. But what the Recreation Funding Committee for the county and the town of Bassano is requesting is a firm commitment that the obligation, the financial obligation, is going to be honored going into 2022. $25,000 is the amount that each municipality contributes to this particular initiative. The funds are then made available to recreation groups within the Bassano service area, and just requesting confirmation from council that the funds in the budget will be made available for that purpose.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Chrisman?
Just not, this is required even though it's in our agreement. Our recreation fund agreement stipulates the 25,000, and it was reaffirmed at our fall meeting that the 25,000 would be adequate for 2022. So I'm just wondering why we're having to deal with this.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm just looking at the agreement here. Was this a request that the town sent, Lane, just for, yeah, so I don't think that it is necessary for a separate motion. Lane could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just looking at the agreement here, and it does include the base budget being set at the 25,000. If the motion gives them additional certainty, but I think the agreement should be sufficient.
I agree fully that it was evident that the commitment had been made, but the request came in to have a council approved motion confirming that the commitment was going to be there.
Councillor Unruh.
Is this every year the same amount, or has this gone up this year from last year?
No.
It has not.
No, and according to our agreement, it specifically says this amount. So that's why I was questioning. I will make the motion this time, but maybe if administration could block it next time, it doesn't need to come here, in my opinion.
We have a motion to approve the funding that has been already allocated and budgeted for. Any further questions? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Does that take care of 9.2? And 9. Okay. So we move on to 9.3, appointment to the County of Newell Library Board for Division 4. Okay. Oh, Ariana, please.
Thank you. So we do have one application submitted for the Division 4 representative. I'm looking for the motion to appoint Suzanne Brummelhaus. There's a couple other vacancies if you know anybody in your area. So Library Board for Division 8 and 10 are still vacant, and we're also looking for the City of Brooks Recreation and Parks Board, a representative who lives in either Division 5 or 10, and a business representative for the Palliser Economic Partnership, so someone from the county that owns a business, preferably. But just the one person today. If you could make the motion that's in the RFD.
Thank you, Ariana. Is someone prepared to make the motion? Councillor Short, a question or?
I'll make that motion.
You're on, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion? That's carried, thank you. Making good time here, that's good. Item 9.4, report on the municipal referendum and Senate election. That is printed for us, correct? Director Lane, please.
So this item is more for information, just kind of wrapping up things from the election, the final chapter here. The intent is to just report on the outcome of a few things that might be of interest to council. This is the first time in recent history that we can recall having an election of sorts in each of the divisions within the county. That's primarily due to the provincial government moving ahead with the Senate election and the 2 referendum questions. So even though there were some divisions that didn't require an election for councillor, we still had voting stations in each division so that the public would have an opportunity to get out and vote on those matters as well. The whole thing couldn't have happened without support of some wonderful individuals within the organization. Certainly Susan and Ariane and Shannon were very key to the election going ahead as successfully as it did without there being any problems through the process. I think as a group we enjoyed the opportunity to be involved with it. It's always a time when there's some excitement in the air. That was certainly the case on the Monday evening. It was 11:30 when we walked out of the building here on Monday night after everything had finally come in. The one table that is before you at the end of the report kind of tells a story on voter turnout, the last column on the right-hand side. In those divisions where there was an election for your municipal councillor, the voter turnout was considerably higher than those divisions where it was just the Senate and the referendum elections that were taking place. But really that's just a summary. It's for information. I don't know if there's too many lessons that need to be drawn from this. It was a good, positive experience from the staff's perspective.
Thank you, Lane. Are there any questions or comments from council? Graver, please.
Thanks, Lane. Wondering how do we compare to other elections for municipal? Are we running around the 35% or 30%? Are we up over prior? It would be fairly consistent with what we've had in the past for those divisions where elections have occurred. The participation rate generally is not as high as we would like to see it be.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, thank you for that information. That's useful and interesting for us to have, for sure. Moving on to item 9.5 of our RMA Convention, registration confirmation meetings with ministers. Ariana, do you want to take us through that, please?
Oh, yes. I think the registration part has been completed. I submitted that and you should have all received an email individually. I marked that all of you will be bringing an electronic device, so either a phone or an iPad to do voting, so please bring your device. Hotel, I touched base with the Marriott today. They're going to be sending confirmation numbers, so I should have those to you next week, but everything's under your name anyway. The main thing is the meetings with ministers. So you have to ask well in advance to get a meeting with the minister if they're available at the RMA. So previous council chose the three that were listed there. So it was municipal affairs, transportation, and agriculture and forestry. And some topics that they suggested that you are free to either choose different topics, add to them, get rid of them, not have a meeting entirely, that's fine. So municipal affairs is the only one that I've got a confirmation with. So I accepted their meeting for November 23rd at 3:45. So the topics suggested by previous council were the assessment model review, timelines for grant funding applications, and dealing with uneven population distribution across electoral divisions. Agriculture and forestry emailed me yesterday, I think, asking for the topics, and none were provided. So if you want a meeting with agriculture and forestry, we can provide some topics and proceed with that or not. And I haven't heard back from transportation at all. So that's where it is.
What is our pleasure? What's standard procedure? I guess we don't have any urgent tasks in either agriculture or transportation, but it would be a matter of familiarizing ourselves with the ministers and vice versa. Who's the Minister of Transportation? Councillor Chris. Yes, I'll take your question because mine was maybe not urgent either.
So my comment or question is around agriculture. What's happening at Ag Service Board politically is that there's all kinds of cuts. They've lost employment at the and direction at the provincial level. And Todd could fill us in better than me. Todd, would you like to speak to this, please?
Todd, are you available to speak to the question of what's happening politically with regard to Ag Service Board?
Yeah, I think regards to Ag Service Board specifically, if we want to talk about cuts, we used to get a base grant of about $160,000, and now I believe our base grant is $120,000. One of the decisions that was made a few years ago that we've been living with. When Kelly talks about cuts to employment, probably more along the lines of the research and extension side of things is where we've really seen those cuts. So my understanding is provincial employees are less able to do extension work for producers. Which really hurts, especially on the ag side for us. We do some extension, but when we do that extension, we need the technical expertise from the province. And whether they don't have it anymore or the ones they do have aren't able to be part of our groups anymore. So that hurts for sure that way. Another, along those lines, I mean, locally for us, CDC South was essentially gutted for staff members there, and along those lines kind of left, at least from what I've heard, something to be desired for the way that property was maintained and managed over the last few seasons. So some things to consider, you know, if the province has desired to make cuts in those regards, they still own some big tracts of land that they have to maintain until they find suitable arrangements, I think. Does that kind of cover what you were meaning, Kelly?
Yep, you added at least one to my list. So are those three topics that council would like to go in with?
Certainly, I think the matter of CDC South and what's happening there, you know, I think there's a pertinent question with regard to the vision for that, for the future of that property. I mean, it was less than, I guess it was a little more than 10 years ago, there was significant investment there in terms of the greenhouse. And as you said, there's a lot of history there, and that is what it is. But there's also potential, and it'd be good to hear what the vision for that project is, and if there isn't one, maybe we help build one. That's historically that has been a significant aspect in Southern Alberta, and I realize things have changed in regard to priorities and the way things get done. But I think that we could. It wouldn't hurt us to have a discussion around that. Is that a reasonable thing? I'm aware of some of the recent history in terms of investment and how that's just been pared down. And I don't think we go in there suggesting that status quo or what was status quo 10 years ago is what we want. Maybe it's to do some thinking around the table too over the next couple of weeks about, what some potential might be, or that we're certainly available and interested in helping cast a vision for that if there isn't one. Acceptable or reasonable to council if we get a meeting with the minister.
And then municipal affairs, we jotted down some suggested topics there. Are you good with those? And typically what happens is the minister approves the topics or denies them. And sometimes the minister decides how many can come to the meeting as well. So we've heard that before, right? But that'll be upon confirmation with the minister, I guess. And then we would decide who's going if that happens. But typically we just meet in the salon in the basement of the TELUS Convention Center, and his or her name is on the door, and we show up at our meeting time and have that 20-minute conversation.
I've been in a few of those on the other side of the fence, and those are useful times. I don't think we shouldn't minimize that. I think we also have a new council, so it's an opportunity to introduce ourselves at one level. What is, just a question for clarification, what are we thinking of with regard to evening out the population balance across electoral divisions? Are we talking about county electoral divisions?
That one had more to do with the ambiguity that exists in the Municipal Government Act with regards to passing bylaws that even out the population between divisions. There's, of course, the history that we went through with regards to the bylaw that was put in place and challenged and overturned. Council, as a result of having gone through that process, pointed out the fact that there is discrepancies within the MGA, and the request was that the minister's office needs to take a look at the legislation and look at addressing the ambiguity that is there and make it abundantly clear as to what can and can't be done in regards to the passage of those bylaws. That was the intent for that particular item.
Okay, thank you. And that's that's an unanswered question to this point, so that's a discussion point. Okay, thank you.
Just one other thing, the Minister of Transportation is Minister Rajan Sawhney, S-A-W-H-N-E-Y.
Oh. What is Council's pleasure? Do we want to proceed with trying to get meetings with all three ministers, or what? Do you have a recommendation, or were you going to say something, Ariana? No? Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Unruh.
So at this point, we only have one topic then for municipal affairs. Can we not just send a letter and ask for that question? That was suggested.
Go ahead.
By former council.
There's actually 3 listed there. There was assessment model review, the timelines for grant funding applications, and then the MGA population bylaw one. I think we actually did send a letter about the MGA one. I can find that and forward it to council if you'd like, and I think we got a response too.
You're suggesting we deal with that simply through correspondence?
Well, the assessment review model is going to come up again, is it not? It was postponed for 3 years, and that, I believe, was 1 or 2 years ago. So I don't know, what are we going to say about that?
Yeah, the assessment model review, I mean, that could tie in with a lot of other things as well, right? So if you're going to get our linear, what are the opportunities to see alternate revenue sources come to the county? What are some of the partnerships we can get into to attract development here? The assessment model review, I think it's important to let the minister know we haven't forgot about it and we want to know what they're doing with it, right? So the 3-year pause was nice, but what are you doing with it? And is it tied directly to whether we approach $100 barrel of oil, or if it goes back down to 25? We'd kind of like some certainty on what that system changes is going to be, or if they're just leaving it alone there. So,
Ellen, please.
I totally agree. I guess the more noise we can make, the better, especially because we rely upon it. I don't know, should we go together with Cyprus? Or, well, I guess they do their own delegations, right? So, yeah, I think it's definitely worth it then, isn't it?
Councillor Christman?
I'd like to make a motion that we continue to seek engagement with municipal affairs, transportation, agriculture, and forestry. And I think we've hit on some topics for Ariana to forward as requested. We've already received confirmation that Minister McIver will meet with us at 3:45, so I'd really like to keep that. That's my motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion with regard to that? I personally think that's a good idea as well. I think it's good for us to have a presence there. We're going up to Edmonton for 4 days, for crying out loud. That'll be a good way to spend some of the time, I think, and make our presence known. And that's what it's about. So I appreciate that. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. I didn't mean to sway our decision, but I did. Moving on to, is there anything else with regard to the RMA meetings, Ariana? We're good? New council training opportunities. Oh, Ellen.
So, it's quite all right. It's not in the regular area, is it, where we normally have the convention? And I'm just wondering, how far is it? And I know it said bus services are available, but I'm just curious how far it is away from the hotel.
Not walking distance.
I believe it's at the Expo Center, but I could Google it. It's no biggie.
Yeah, Matt has an invitation that's been extended to us with regard to an evening November 23rd in Edmonton. So maybe just give us the details, Matt.
Yeah, so one of the engineering firms that we do some work with has extended an invite to council to go out for dinner on the night of Tuesday, the 23rd. So I said I'd throw it out today and see if we're amenable to spending the night with them for dinner.
That's good. Okay. Well, there's a map up now, City of Edmonton, just for our information, I guess, eh?
Yeah, so Ariane has got it up there that the direct route by vehicle is 11 minutes. Walking distance was what, Ariane, an hour?
57 minutes one way.
Walking. As long as it's not 30 below. No.
I think it was my second year of employment with Newell, 2009 or 2010, where the conference was at Northlands. And yes, you will be either taking a bus or feel liberty to jump on the train and be delivered one way or the other. But I don't know if have they chartered the buses to take elected officials, or is it just on city transit? I don't know.
I know the website did say there were shuttles available from the hotel, so I would imagine they're chartered buses, not public transit.
We've got it figured out anyway, so we'll be good. Okay. Thank you for the information. Let's move along to new council training opportunities. Lane, you've outlined that for us as well. I'm not sure if everybody's had a chance to look at it.
You've been through the county-provided new council orientation. It is a requirement that councillors be oriented in their role. So technically, what we have provided would probably fill that requirement. However, there are other opportunities that we would certainly encourage you to pursue. We've identified 2 of them that you would be able to participate in individually at your pleasure, work around your schedule. What is required, though, is if these are going to be opportunities that will be participated in and there's an expectation that you be compensated as per the policy, then council needs to approve a motion that you would be able to attend as a function of council. So the recommendation is that you just do that, approve a motion allowing each member of council to choose 1 or 2 of these sessions that you would like to participate in as a function of council.
Thank you, Lane. There are a couple of opportunities. The one is an online course on November 29th, correct? And then there's a multiple different locations for the Muni 101, correct?
That's right, and in fact, it is being offered in conjunction with the RMA, but chances are it's full.
Yeah, it is. I think Ariana pointed that out to us in the email yesterday.
But there are other locations where that same course is being offered.
Right, Lethbridge, Strathmore are probably 2 of the closest ones that I recall. But we need a motion for council to approve the budget or the funding for councillors to attend that. I think as well that that's a good idea to get some of the background training that is available, if we can fit it into our schedules. What is your pleasure? And I expect with regard to this, a general motion that would approve council to pick and choose, assuming that we're going to stay as close to home as possible too, in terms of the one that involves travel, correct? Anyone have direction for us with regard to that? Councillor Short.
I'll make a motion that we make up to 2 training sessions a function of council for all council members involved.
That covers what we need in that regard. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Requests for functions of council. What is that? Go ahead, please.
So this would be for anything outside of the routine meetings that you have from time to time to attend special events and be compensated for it as a function of council at the hourly rate, if I understand the policy proper.
That's right. This is a standing item on all agendas, so that if there is something that you become aware of that you need approval from the rest of council, it gives you an opportunity to raise it and receive approval for that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the idea being you receive permission from your peers to track your time, and then it's not a surprise on the compensation committee when they review your timesheet and struggle with whether they're going to deny your time or not, because we've already dealt with it up front.
Councillor Johnson, please.
I'm bringing this forward for Councillor Philpott, who had to leave for a funeral. So she is attending a meeting with the Ag Society, the Dutchess Ag Society. It is a local meeting, but it's not considered recreation or fire. So she is unclear as to whether she is to record that time or is it included in the $1,000 stipend. Just wanted some direction.
Councillor Christman, please.
So anything in your communities or my community that doesn't show up on our committee report, we're doing as volunteers. Which I am a member of Bassano Ag Society and Bassano Newell Further Education, and I sit on a lot of committees as a volunteer, and so it has nothing to do with County of Newell. That's my personal decision. Is that clear? Yep. Okay.
Councillor Unruh, please.
Yeah, same as Kelly. I am also been a long-time member of the Ag Society Board, and we don't charge for that unless we change the policy.
So I mean, I think what we're hearing is that if we're attending meetings in our own community groups that we typically could be a part of anyway, we're not going to, those are things we're just going to do, right? Okay. Are there any functions that anyone has knowledge of going forward? I think Ariana is quite active, letting us know what's coming up when there are invitations and that kind of thing. Councillor Schreiber.
So there is a Vaughan spill coming up there's a couple of us, Councillor Scanderup and myself, are going to be actually curling in, and they've requested that there be councillor representation, county representation there. Just want to make sure we have approval to sit on behalf of the county, represent on behalf of the county on that.
I did notice that both of you are going to be there, and my request would be that you speak on our behalf, bring greetings on behalf of council. If you're there anyway, I think it only makes sense. If you're good with that, yeah. Are we in favor of that? Everybody, all in favor that we ask Councillors Screever and Scanderup to represent us at the Harwood curling bonspiel. Bring greetings on behalf of council. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're on to number 10.2, Director of Municipal Services report, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So typical fashion.
It's 3 o'clock. I'm going to suggest we take 5. Is that okay?
It's fine by me. You're in charge.
I think we'll all be more alert when we come back, and we're not going to miss anything you say there.
Only if you promise.
Okay, let's reconvene. We'll grind to the end here. Director of Municipal Services, please.
Okay, so every month I prepare this report delivered to council. Generally, I just try to provide a high-level overview because I'm sure that each of you are more than capable of reading the report yourself if you're prepared for the meeting. But Always throw in here what the municipal enforcement monthly priorities are and what the next priorities are. The link in blue with underline highlight, you can go to the Alberta Traffic Safety Calendar anytime you like to look at what those monthly priorities are in the 12-month period. You already heard from John Nesbitt today, so I'm not going to go through and highlight anything here, other than the fact that I've been also working on redoing the CPO agreements with our municipal partners, so Town of Bassano, Village of the Rosemary, Duchess, and the Eastern Irrigation District. And some of those are starting to flow through the system now. We're waiting on others to get up to speed with their councils. So on top of that, I wasn't present for John's report, but we have caught word that Smart Squad e-ticketing is working with OmniGo. This is a provincial legislated thing for how we're going to start processing tickets moving forward, and our officers can issue tickets through the provincial system and or through our local bylaws. So these are things that we need to be staying on top of and implementing. We already have the Smart Squad system in place. We already have OmniGo in place, so the merging of these two is to our benefit. Fleet services, they're keeping up with the preventative maintenance, reactive work with repairs and stuff as things go down. We've also been working on diagnosing some of our global positioning systems in all of our units. So if council's not familiar, we have a GPS in everything that has a motor, so we know exactly where it's at, what it's been doing, how many hours are on it, how many kilometers has been driven, last location, last use, things that are not frequently used, all that fun stuff. So that is in place for us, and that ties into us tracking our operational costs as well as our preventative maintenance programs with our fleet machinery and equipment. Operations-wise, I'd like to give a highlight as to how many rotations of each respective greater operating area has been gone through each year. So right now we're sitting at 6 full rotations for the season. Council should know that it was a very dry year, so we didn't have any delays to rain or anything like that. They just kept grading the roads and making more dust, because that's what we're out there doing, is making dust for everybody, right? On the average season is 5.5 rotations. So as freeze up comes in here, that's going to slow down. We'll get the final rounds in. Things will get froze up if they actually freeze up this winter, and grading will stop, and we'll transition to snow plowing if the white stuff ever chooses to join us. Truck drivers, they're into the winter stockpiling program, hauling from the ballast pit, which is up and east of Gem on the Red Deer River, to the county yard here. When they're complete that one, they'll be moving into the Steveville gravel pit north of Patricia, also up on the Red Deer River, and hauling down to Rolling Hills. The last location that we'll stockpile is just off of Highway 1 at Tilly, and we're going to set an objective this year of cutting back by 20 or 30% on how much we stockpile, and going with a direct haul, so we're not doing any secondary material handling. And because we got Highway 876 paved, we're moving product a little bit more efficient than what we were when it was just a gravel road, because it was not a great condition road to be traveling with our trucks. Other than that, they're ready to go at a moment's notice for any winter storm events and stuff that hit the region and affect our paved roads. The gravel foreman is done for the season. The 2022 gravel road resurfacing program assessments is complete, so it's ready to go when they come back in spring, and we can cut operators loose on that. Maintenance operators every month, they're tending to all these other activities, the sign maintenance, snow fence. They get involved in some of the vegetation management, brush control stuff that we do, working on greater compound setups and stuff as we move through those kinds of things that we're taking on. And then the bigger one is the railway legislation and requiring stop control, so stop signs to be erected at railway crossings where there are no crossing control arms, flashing lights, and audible measures. That is right from Transport Canada legislation, and we need to have that done by the 21st of November, so we're getting close on that. Construction projects remain in progress. Got some down at Rolling Hills, some right here just north and west of the office on 15-0 and 15-1 between Highway 542 and Township Road 18-4. Still working on land acquisition in Johnson Estates 1 and 2. Big things with that subdivision are where residents have planted the trees and the trees affecting the sight lines for motorists entering onto the Joanne Trucking Road or Township Road 19-1. So we're working on that. We also have Range Road 16-4 out by Bow City, between Bow City and Rainier. That road has been in place for decades. It's nowhere near the actual government road allowance, so we're looking to do the land swap and any compensation of dollars to get the land acquired where the road is and transfer the unused portion of land or road allowance back to the landowner to keep our costs down on that as much as possible. If we were going to reconstruct the road where the road allowance was, you probably wouldn't want to be, I wouldn't want to be talking to you about the cost to do that versus doing a land swap. So trying to keep money in mind here. Engineering, water, wastewater. County pathway extension, we've been working on that, having those base plans. We got confirmation of the extension of the grant funding to the end of 2022. So in the spring, we'll be looking at tendering this 2.4 kilometers of pathway. And if things proceed with budget and proceed on the regional initiative to taking a pathway to Kinbrook, maybe we'll look at it as a project in its entirety to try to get better pricing and competitive bidding on that project for cost savings purposes. But we'll be having that one on the books unless things decide otherwise with budget. EID County Partnership, we were close to seeing the nearly 9 kilometers of roadside drainage completed. I am aware that the Eastern Irrigation District has pulled its crews out of the area for now because they're working on a major project south here on Lake Newell that's taking water through a gravity-fed pipeline to the Tilley area. I'm hoping that my efforts can get them back up to the Rosemary area and get the rest of this complete this year, but I'm not confident. So if it doesn't happen, it'll happen come probably summer next year after roads thaw and frost boils are gone, but that's outstanding. Tilley landfill closure request for proposal is out for engineering services. This one's been sitting on the books since the 2013 period when Tilley dissolved, and it was sitting on the books prior to that even. It's one of these projects that it isn't going anywhere, but new projects of council, new initiatives and stuff, we just really haven't found the time staff-wise to get it done. So the proposal is out for engineering. We'll see what we get back, try to get some tendering out in the new year and get that one wrapped up in 2022 and completely off the books. And there is a liability fund that covers off those expenses to clay cap and close that landfill. Long-range aggregate supply remains in the stages of intrusive investigation. So this is where the firm is running around performing ground disturbance, trying to determine what kind of aggregates may be present on the parcels that they have identified from resource research, desktop reviews, and some non-intrusive across land. And whatever we find in those areas will be our corporate business intelligence and will be shared with council on how we want to proceed with potential acquisitions moving forward when we can bring that forward to you. Patricia sewer work is deferred until 2022. We just didn't get there. NRSC is keeping a watchful eye over the segment of sewer line that we've had some backups and stuff on. We haven't had any issues in the homes to any great extent anyway, but we're being mindful of that, and spring of 2022 is when that'll take place. We also had in the plans Rolling Hills truck parking lot. This is all of our hamlets have a maximum weight restriction of 50%, unless of course you are a trucker that has a scheduled delivery where you're delivering to a convenience store, to a recreation hall or something like that, or it's even somebody that's moving into or out of the community. You can bring those vehicles in, but you have to have that point of delivery, otherwise it's a breach of our enforcement and can be ticketed. So this one's in for application with Alberta Transportation for approval because the point of access is Highway 875, where the old raw water pond was, just north of the Highway 875 and 525 intersection in Rolling Hills. We filled in all that pond and we're looking for those alternative uses. This is a trial project where there are some people, community members that drive trucks for various companies and stuff, but they have nowhere that they can bring those units home because they legally shouldn't be on the roads. And we're trying to preserve those roads in those communities, so we need to offer something else up. So gravel pad, looking at a 2 or 3 wide truck parking, horseshoe kind of loop kind of thing going in and out of the community on that lot. So once that's all approved, we can move forward with construction and hoping that we can do that yet this fall. Other business, we've been busy preparing and orientating council. We were busy in preparing budget, which has been delivered. We've been in the meetings with Pathway to Kinbrook Island, and we continue working on our asset management plan. So water, wastewater, stormwater, paved roads, gravel roads. Other departments are working on facilities, IT infrastructure, things like that. This is getting where our conditions are at with everything that we have. What kind of assets do we have, the values that we have, the timeline that we want to be looking at scheduling, preventative maintenance activities, replacement, and better information informing budget and directing council as to what we need when we need it, and tightening those timelines on best practices and what we see in our system. So that's what I've got. In addition to my report, I always attach the permit activity report on the back. This is something that is done through contracted services with road data out of Red Deer. They do an online portal for any industry with overweight, overdimensional loads. So the dog houses, the mud tanks, the light plants, the service rigs, the drilling rigs, everything like that, those are the statistics here. So I had no update at the time of preparing the report, but I did receive the municipal load report for October. 161 permits issued. So, you know, we're sitting down there at our 2020 levels. Like we're not much better than we were last year at this time, which is well below the 3-year and 5-year averages, and definitely nowhere near our what our best year I think was 2018 on the average anyway. We're running about 39% less in permit activity than what we have in the 5-year, 3-year best periods. The economy's hurting. We definitely saw some increase in a few things. You know, if you look back into the January and the February, we were still below average, but March gave us some hope, and then the numbers just continued to stay low throughout the year. And I don't think that, I'm not the politician, but some of the news coming from the federal government is not looking hopeful for the region with a cap on oil and gas activity and stuff, natural resources, but we can hope. You can lobby, and I'll keep preparing my report. So if you have any questions on things, I'll do my best to get you up to speed.
Thank you. Mark, are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll take you next month. Thank you, and we need a motion to accept municipal services report.
Yeah, I don't know, did you do one report for both the utilities and the director of municipal services report, so I don't know if you did one already or if the motion.
We did both, so motion to approve both municipal services and
utilities.
Utilities report. Councillor Johnson, all in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Let's move on to post-agenda items. Do we have any? Matt, please.
Yeah, so post-agenda item, we've received an invite to meet with MLA Frey on November 19th. If we're fast enough at choosing a time, we might get our preferred meeting time with her. So we just wanted to put that in front of council. And if you'd like to meet with her, Ariana will make the contact with the office and we'll get a meeting with MLA Frey. Yeah, that's a separate meeting. That's a Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the date she chose. Go ahead.
I did ask if it was possible to have it on the 18th with the council meeting, but she's up in Edmonton at that time, so.
Okay. You're suggesting a morning meeting?
Late morning? Oh, how long does she generally meet?
I didn't actually ask that. Probably an hour-ish. I can confirm that with her.
I would be going for like 10 or 11.
Let's see what we can do mid to late morning. Good with that? Okay. Thank you. Are there other? Information items? What do we have?
Check register, minibus report. They run through.
Okay.
Like not in detail, but if there's any questions.
Yeah. Are there any questions with? Check payment registers. That's all the expenditures account of the county on a monthly basis, correct? Yeah. Okay. Any questions about any of that? Either or the minibus report? Councillor Johnson, please.
This is strictly for our information. There's nothing to do. We're not approving it's
Matt?
Yeah, so in terms of the payment register for council, we put that on here for transparency. There's a lot of places that don't provide the payment register. Both myself and the Reeve review the payment register, and we sign off it as one of our internal controls.
Any questions about that? Seeing none, we'll move on to in camera. Oh.
Yeah, information item. Just want to remind the rest of council to get your October expenses and time submitted to payroll. It's that time of year, or that time of the month. Usually you do it the end of the month or the first 3 days of the month, and then that keeps payroll on schedule. If we let payroll down or slow payroll down, then it bungs it up and holds it over to the next month. So encourage you all to try and get it in the first week of the new month.
Okay, thank you for that. Otherwise, we'll move to complete our in-camera session, right? We had a few more items on there, right? Okay. So, Todd, are we offline or heading that way?
Yeah, usually, I believe anybody that's watching, they usually wait for us to make a motion to go in camera, and then I shut the stream off, and then we lock the meeting, and then you have your in-camera session.
Thank you. We're getting more familiar with that procedure all the time. Is there a motion? Councillor Chrisman made that motion. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried.